If you're planning to retire in Thailand or maybe live in Thailand long term, you're probably thinking about the issue of health insurance, especially if you're my age. And it's a complicated subject in any country, but especially in a foreign country. And it's very easy in Thailand to get the wrong policy from the wrong company and find out when you actually need it that you did something inadvertently to invalidate the policy. That actually happens a lot, and I'll tell you exactly how to avoid it, or to find out that it doesn't cover what you think that it does. So we're going to cover all the things that you need to know, things that I promise you you're not going to see in any other video on how to get health insurance in Thailand. And one thing before we get into it, one thing that bothers me about YouTube is that if you were to watch, and you probably have, other insurance videos on Thailand, they quite often end with the recommendation, call Safety Wing. Well, Safety Wing is not a bad company. I'm not putting it down. But the reason you see so many YouTubers direct you to that particular company, which in many cases is not going to be your best bet, is because they're sponsored videos where the company is paying them to promote their product, or they use what's called an affiliate link, which you can identify because it has the name of the company, and then after the .com or the .org, it's got some kind of a long tag to make sure that the YouTuber gets a commission for that referral coming from them. And let me be clear, there's nothing wrong with that. Many of my friends are great YouTubers and they use those. YouTubers deserve to make a living. But for me personally, I just want you to know that I don't do sponsored videos, so nobody's paying for this video. Any of the companies I talk about are because I think they're the best ones. And I don't have any affiliate links, so there's no dime in this for me. I just want you to get the best information you can and get it with confidence. All right, so let's get going and find the best policy for you at the best price. Sawadee Kap, Sabadi Mai Kap, and welcome to Chiang Mai, Thailand. Let's get right into it. There's two main reasons why people get medical insurance policies in Thailand. The first would be that it's required by their visa. And the second, I think, would be the obvious one. People just want good quality health insurance. And I'm sure there's a third group, which is people that want both of those things, good insurance for their visa. So let's talk about the visas that require health insurance. Some of the more popular ones do. That would include the non-OA retirement visa, the non-OX, and the LTR. There's also a visa called the non-O retirement visa, which is maybe the most popular one. And that one's a little bit confusing because technically there is no health insurance requirement. So you'll never get that added on as a requirement if you're applying in-country with immigration in Thailand. But if you're applying for that when you're out of the country, in your home country to a Thai embassy or consulate, whether it's London or Los Angeles or Sydney or Vancouver, sometimes these foreign location embassies will add the health insurance requirement to the non-O, even though it's not technically required. But let's don't get bogged down on that. This is not a video about visas. We want to talk about the health insurance side of it. There's also several visas that have no health insurance requirement at all. That would be, well, it should be the non-O, as I just mentioned, but also the DTV, the ED educational visa, and the elite visa. So it's a little bit confusing. Don't get too bogged down on it because if you're working with an insurance agent, they're going to help make sure you get one that covers you. And in reality, pretty much any of these plans that are for 3 million baht, 4 million baht, 100,000 US, they're all going to be about the same coverage. Let's start by looking at one of the AXA Easy Care Visa plans. This quote is for a 65-year-old male. This looks pretty good. 23,800 baht is only 690 US dollars a year. That's $57 a month. Let's stop right there for a minute. I don't know about other countries and the cost of medical care, but in the United States, medical care is prohibitively expensive. When I was 65 years old, many years ago, My insurance plan was $1,250 a month. What is that? $14,000 a year, $15,000 a year. And here we're getting a plan for $690. So right off the bat, we should really be wondering, how much are we going to get from this plan? Okay, so let's get back into it because it looks good. There's coverage throughout Thailand. The maximum coverage is 4 million baht. That's 115,000 US, which may not sound like a lot to you, but in Thailand, that actually goes a very long way. We'll talk about that later. There's a 300,000 baht deductible. There's even outpatient coverage for doctor visits of 1,500 baht per visit to a maximum of 45,000 baht per year. That sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Especially for 57 US dollars a month. But the reality is, you're not getting what you think you're getting. And don't think I'm picking on AXA. AXA is a very good French insurance company. This just happens to be one of their really cheap plans to meet the specific requirement. So let's look at what this plan really gives you. The first issue is it only covers Thailand, which is great if you never leave Thailand. But if you're going to be like a lot of us, you're going to be traveling to other countries in Southeast Asia. It's advisable to get a plan that will cover all of Southeast Asia, and quite often, you don't even really pay more for that extra coverage. So the first big problem is the maximum coverage of 4 million baht is somewhat deceptive, because it's not 4 million baht total for your medical needs. There's quite often categories within that they will only cover up to that amount. So it might be broken bones are only 100,000 baht. The surgical suite, only so much amount. So you could easily have an expense that's well under 4 million baht, and it wouldn't be covered because it's in excess of the subcategories that they've imposed. Now, the really tricky one here is the deductible, because at least in the West, a deductible is an annual amount that we have to meet before we can start getting our insurance coverage. So already there's a problem that's a pretty big deductible. I mean, 300,000 baht is over 8,000 US dollars. That's a big payout before this insurance will ever cover you. But it gets worse. If I have an illness or an accident in January and I meet the deductible, and then in April, I've got a different accident, another injury, I start the deductible period all over again. And guess what? It gets worse. So look at this. This looks pretty good, actually. Outpatient coverage, so just seeing a regular doctor, is covered 1,500 per visit, 1,500 baht, which is about $45. And that may not sound like much to you, but that covers pretty much any doctor in Thailand. I've seen doctors for as little as 500 baht. Very, very inexpensive, but here's the problem. You'll probably never get to use it because the 300,000 baht deductible applies to outpatient care as well. So how could you ever even use the coverage? That sounds so absurd. I actually went to an insurance agent years ago when I was looking for a plan, and this was the plan that we discussed, one of them. And he told me with a straight face, I'm sure he believed it, that, oh yes, that's completely separate from the deductible. But I called the company myself and I found out, no, it is not covered. Now you might be saying, well, this is ridiculous. Why would anyone get this policy? Well, again, it serves a very narrow purpose, and that is to satisfy a visa. And it would pay out if you meet all those requirements, but it's not very likely to happen. Now you might be wondering, hey, I've got health insurance in my home country from my job or my retirement, and they're saying they'll cover me internationally. They'll cover me in Thailand. Most won't, but let's say you're lucky. So can you use that? Well, the answer is yes, you can use it for medical care. But if you're getting insurance to meet the visa requirement, the answer is almost always no, because it has to be a Thai-approved insurance company. So for the most part, these are Thai companies. Now, there is one exception. If you're getting a non-OA visa, they do allow you to use insurance from your home country, but only if your insurance company will fill out a Thai form, and I'll leave a link in the description because this form is hard to find, but if they'll fill out that form and guarantee coverage in Thailand, then great, that will meet the requirement. You don't have to worry about Thailand health insurance. But I'll tell you, from what I've heard, I've never heard of a single insurance company that's willing to fill out that form guaranteeing coverage in Thailand. So you might be wondering, well, can you get a good policy that's going to meet these requirements for the visa, but also give me insurance that I can rely upon? And the answer is obviously yes. The best news is you can still do it quite affordably. Let's look at one of those plans. So this plan is from Pacific Cross, another major Thai insurer, the Maxima Plus plan. You can see it's significantly more expensive at 84,000 baht, which is about 2,400 per year, $203 a month. Still incredibly inexpensive compared to at least the United States for insurance. And right off the bat, here's a big, nice benefit different from the last plan. This covers us worldwide except the United States. Everybody excludes America because of the high medical cost here. But this means you can go to Southeast Asia, you can go to Europe, you can go to Australia, and still be covered under your plan. The maximum coverage per year is 10 million baht. That's about $289,000 US. And again, some of you might be thinking, well, that's really not enough. One heart attack, that's going to wipe it out completely. But you're thinking in terms of United States costs. In Thailand, that amount goes a long way, and I'm going to give you some examples on that later. I would suggest on this plan or any plan, you still want to check out any subcategories within the total coverage package just to make sure that they're not going to be offering small amounts for certain coverages you might need. I've only mentioned two specific companies, AXA and Pacific Cross, but there's dozens of good insurance companies and maybe some that aren't so good in Thailand. So you've got a big choice of companies. With most of these major companies, you can actually go directly on their company website. You can just Google AXA or Pacific Cross and you'll find one of their representatives that will talk to you and give you a quote. I recommend you don't do that. I'm going to recommend that you get a qualified insurance agent, and there's several reasons why. Number one, all companies are not created equal, and they're not created equally for each person. So they're going to be able to look at your needs, your age, your pre-existing conditions, all kinds of issues, and find out which company best meets your needs and your budget. If you talk to just one company, they're not going to do that for you. They're also going to help you fill out the forms. You're going to have a long list of questions to fill out regarding your health history. And you're going to wonder, well, do I list this? Do I not list this? How do I list this? That agent is going to be there to help you. And what about pre-existing conditions? I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But certain companies will look at certain medical problems differently. So if you're dealing with diabetes or high blood pressure or whatever it might be, one company might look at that more broadly and less severely than another company would. And if you're thinking, well, I'm going to save money by going directly to a company and getting it off their website, no. Absolutely, the plans are the same price whether you buy it directly off the website or through an insurance agent. But I think by far the biggest reason to get your plan through a qualified insurance agent is you want them as your advocate. Because if you make a claim and the insurance company denies it or gives you the runaround, and let's face it, insurance companies around the world have been known to do that. If you got your plan just through the company website or through one of their direct representatives, you have no recourse. You've got really nobody that can go to bat for you. But if you got your plan through an agent, especially one that works for a big agency with a lot of agents selling plans and a lot of different companies, that insurance company knows that, hey, if we kind of pass on this questionable claim, they're going to stop selling our policies. So it makes it much more likely that that agent can help you out, not to mention that they know how to speak that insurance company language that you don't. Let's talk about a huge issue, which is pre-existing conditions. Let's face it, as we get older, we tend to have more things that are wrong with us. So when we change countries and we need a new insurance company, this is a problem, and there's really no way around it. A lot of insurance companies are not going to cover a pre-existing condition. let my friend Nat, who's an insurance agent here in Thailand, explain.
Most insurance providers, they don't actually cover for the pre-existing conditions, but there are some providers more on the expensive side who are a bit more flexible. But in covering pre-existing conditions, it's a case-by-case basis. If you did have high blood pressure and you wanted it covered, because high blood pressure, it can relate to heart attacks, strokes, etc. The medical provider will evaluate your medical history. Have you had any serious hospitalizations because of this condition in the past year or so? What's your BMI like? How many medication are you taking?
BMI stands for body mass index. That's kind of a polite way to talk about whether you're obese or not. Correct?
Yeah. So if your BMI was in a healthy range and you've not had any serious hospitalizations, you're on steady medication, then it's a possibility that the insurer can cover that specific condition. But like I said, it's a case-by-case basis. With diabetes type 2, that's possible that the insurer can cover that condition. For type 1, it's not possible. You will have to go on a specific plan called a moratorium plan, but we can touch upon that later. But if you do have medical conditions, don't be worried. You still can get insurance, but you have to understand that 9 times out of 10, generally they will exclude that pre-existing condition prior to you joining.
Now, I'm guessing an advantage to contacting an agent such as yourself is off the top of your head, when someone comes in and they say, I've got diabetes, I've got whatever it might be, which companies look at these health conditions in a more positive way from the client's perspective. Correct. Right? So you can kind of direct them to the company, to the plan that's going to give them the best opportunity, which we really can't do on our own. I mean, I love to be a self-researcher and go on websites and start typing in things and get numbers, but you're not going to get the full story. And it sounds like from what you're saying, though, if you have a condition, let's say I've got high blood pressure, but it's never really created a problem for me. There's been no visits to the hospital regarding heart pains or anything like that. So that makes it more likely I can actually still get coverage for heart-related illness.
Correct.
So I think the takeaway from that is that if you have a pre-existing condition and it is giving you physical problems, it's being manifested with something, it's probably not going to be covered when you change companies. However, if you have a condition, let's say high blood pressure, but it's not causing yet some of the things that high blood pressure or hypertension might cause, like a heart or a stroke, there are some companies that are going to be much more likely to know which companies those are. So that's where an insurance agent is going to come in very handy. Remember that with health insurance, it's risk assessment. So if a company will usually deny you because you have a pre-existing condition, there are some companies that will still cover that pre-existing condition and any manifestations that flow from that if you pay extra. You're just changing the risk assessment for them. So that's another question you can ask your agent is, if you would otherwise be denied, what will it cost you to get that covered, as opposed to having no coverage for that particular issue? What about age? That's a really big issue because let's face it, as we get older, it's more likely things are going to go wrong with us. And for that reason, policies cost more and more the older that we get. And that kind of brings up the question is, well, how old can I be if I go to Thailand and I want to get a policy with a new company? I would be a new member. Well, of the two companies that I just mentioned, AXA accepts new policy holders up until the age of 80. And their policies can go up to the age of 99 once you've got a policy. For Pacific Cross, the oldest age is normally 75. But I asked Nat about that, and he said that he has companies that will actually cover people with no age maximum, but you have to expect that you're going to be paying a much higher premium to get that coverage. What about saving money when we buy medical insurance in Thailand? Well, there's actually quite a few ways that you can save a significant amount, and I asked Nat about that.
I would say the major ways to save money on your policies is, one is to take a deductible / excess. Two, check if they have like an Asia region instead of a worldwide excluding USA region. Three, I would say not to add the routine optional outpatient. Because if you add the routine optional outpatient, it normally increases your premium by, I would say, 40 to 50%.
So that's amazing information that you can save about 40 or 50%. I mean, that's just about half on a plan if you don't get outpatient coverage. So the big three things to save money is, if you can get a family plan, whether it's just you and a spouse or spouse and children. That can quite often get you a discount of 10 to 15%. Asking for a higher deductible, or the one we just mentioned, the big one, which is not getting outpatient coverage. And if you're thinking, well, man, I'm giving up a lot if I'm not getting covered for regular doctor care. But you know what? I think in many cases you're not. The cost of medical care in Thailand is incredibly inexpensive. I did a video, and I'll leave a link right up here, on hospital care. And I give you specific prices on what doctors cost, what hospital treatments cost, and you would be amazed at the cost. I've been to the hospital twice in Chiang Mai, both private hospitals, top of the line hospitals, one Bangkok hospital and one Chiang Mai Ram. And in both cases, I think the total cost of my medical care was probably, I would say, 10% of what it would have been in the United States. In one instance, I went to the emergency room for severe stomach pain. I saw a doctor, I got an x-ray. I don't remember the exact cost, it was years ago, but I think $40. That was the doctor visit, he spoke English, and the x-ray. I went back the next day for a follow-up with an internist, so a specialist, another scan of some sort. I think that came up to under 50 for both. My wife, Joy, who's Thai, just went to Chiang Mai Ram to see a dermatologist. The dermatologist cost 800 baht, which is, what is that, $20? I mean, my point is that if you're paying for regular doctor care out of pocket, you're really not spending that much money. If I'm getting a plan, I'm just getting hospital coverage because I want coverage for the big stuff. So talking about insurance plans and how much coverage do you need really brings up the issue of, what does medical care cost in Thailand? And I'm a native, I'm from America, so I have no idea the cost of medical care in Europe or Australia. I can tell you in America it's outrageous, so I can only compare to that. If you go to a public hospital, there's actually four levels of hospitals in Thailand. There's the lowest level, public, which foreigners can go to as well. Above that would be university hospitals. Above that would be private clinics at public hospitals. And the top one would be private hospitals. I really recommend that when you're done watching this video, watch my video on hospitals, because it's really complete. It tells you how to find the best doctor, the best hospital, talks about the exact price of medical treatments. So I recommend that you watch that. But don't leave now. I got more important things to tell you. I'll leave a link to that hospital video at the end of this video, and it'll also be in the description and in the first comment under the video. If you went to a public hospital in Thailand, really basic hospital, it's probably going to cost you less than 10% of what it would cost you in America. If you go to the highest level, a private hospital here, which, by the way, they're just as nice as the nicest hospitals in the United States, and everybody speaks English. They're just amazing. I would say that the cost is going to be anywhere from a quarter to 40% would be my guess, just depending upon the hospital and what you're getting. So you don't need nearly as much coverage as you would in the United States. So last, I want to talk about what's really one of the most important issues, and that's what can trip you up. If you do everything right, you choose the right plan, you used an agent, what can happen to mess you up and then you don't get coverage? Here's the main things. One is that you were dishonest in your health history and in your application. You need to be honest. Your agent can help you know what to include and not to include, but you can't leave important things out. Now, here's the thing. you could leave it out and you'd get the policy because they're not going to be investigating you at that stage. They're relying upon what you tell them. But when you make your claim, if let's say you've got a huge claim, well, now they're going to go back and check. And now they're going to find records that you had that show that maybe you did leave out a major medical issue that they would have otherwise denied. So now you're completely screwed. So don't lie. The other issue is one of kind of, I don't want to say negligence, but let's say you get in a car accident, or even more likely, a motorcycle accident. You've probably heard roads are somewhat on the dangerous side in Thailand, especially on a motorcycle. If you get in an accident and you don't have a driver's license, or you don't have a motorcycle operator license, some companies will deny you because you are an unlicensed driver. And the reason that this really affects a lot of people is because you can go rent a car, rent a motorcycle, buy them without any kind of Thai license. Nobody really cares or checks. They just want to get paid for their product. Even if you get stopped by the police, they'll write you a ticket and then they'll just let you go on your way. They don't really seem to care that you're going off and driving without a license. So you get this false sense of it's okay because they rented you the motorcycle, the police stop you, they let you go. But hey, if you get in an accident and you're hurt, be prepared that your company might deny you. So the smart thing is don't drive a motorcycle or a car unless you've got the right license. All right, that's a wrap. You are a graduate of the Randy Hicks Retired Global Life Insurance School. I hope that if you like this video, you will subscribe and ring the notification bell so you'll learn about new videos that I do. I hope you give it a like. That tells YouTube that, hey, it's a good video. And by all means, please share it with someone you know that might be interested in coming to Thailand as well. Here's the link for the hospital video as promised. I'll also leave information about Nat if you'd like to contact him. That'll be in the description, and I'll put it on the screen as well. Until I see you again, safe travels.